welcome to the Executive Protection and Secure Transportation Podcast. This podcast is provided by the International Security Driver Association, where every week we share secure transportation and executive protection headlines, news, trends, and educational content for today's practitioners. Well, hello and welcome to episode 188 of the Executive Protection Secure Transportation Podcast. I'm your host, Larry Snow. We'll start off this week with potential headaches for secure transportation providers who rent vehicles. With the pandemic restrictions easing a little bit, business and consumer travel is back to pre-pandemic levels. One problem, there are rental car shortages. You might have already experienced this. Since 2013, when the ISDA conducted its first executive vehicle survey, the data have consistently indicated that security providers rely heavily on renting vehicles for their secure transportation needs. So the shortages are due in part to a couple of reasons. One is when the pandemic began, there was no business travel or any vacations, so the rental car companies had an overwhelming supply of vehicles. To try and recoup their losses, a lot of the companies sold their inventory off. The second issue is the global microchip shortages have cut the production of new cars and continue to deal a heavy blow to car rental companies. The bad news is that the car shortage and the headaches for car renters and secure transportation providers who rely on rental vehicles won't ease until 2022 or later, according to car rental industry experts. According to the Los Angeles Times, quote, because of the shortage, car rental companies are keeping their cars longer before selling them and replacing them with new vehicles. In the past, rental firms sold their cars when they reached 25,000 to around 50,000 miles, but they're now keeping them until they reach nearly 90,000 miles. Rental companies are also trying to restock their aging fleet by buying back cars that have been previously sold off at auction to used car dealerships. Rental car companies, like the rest of the United States, it seems, are having a tough time filling jobs to help deliver cars from low-demand areas to a high-demand area or location. So with all of the issues, car rental prices have increased by 200% in some locations. Also, according to the Times, industry experts say travelers who want to avoid such headaches should book cars as early as possible and try to choose car rental outlets in small or mid-sized airports where demand is lower. The second story we have this week is an update to the Fakhrizadeh assassination. So back in December of 2020, in episode 161, and we'll have a link to that episode in the show notes for this episode, we outlined the assassination of the Iranian senior nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. And a little background here, Mohsen, dubbed the father of Iranian nuclear program, held the rank of brigadier general in Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC for short, and according to intelligence reports, he was responsible for Iran's development of nuclear warheads on ballistic missiles. On Friday, November 27th of last year at 2:15 p.m., Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was ambushed while traveling in an armored Nissan Tiana on a rural road in Absard. At the time of the assassination, there were varying reports on how the ambush was carried out. The reports on how, where, and who conducted the ambush varied from a completely automated facial recognition satellite remote control machine gun mounted in a pickup truck with no attackers present, to 12 attackers in a pickup truck, motorcycle, 2 snipers, plus 40 to 50 support personnel. So it was widely varied. However, the New York Times recently, as of last week, confirmed that it was indeed an AI-controlled rifle in the pickup truck. So the gun, along with its advanced robotic apparatus, weighed roughly a ton, according to the New York Times, and Israeli operatives smuggled the weapon and its parts piecemeal into Iran before reassembling it. The entire system was then fitted into the bed of a pickup truck that contained multiple cameras in order to give Israeli operatives a full picture view of the surroundings. The truck was also packed with explosives in order to blow up any evidence after the mission was completed or compromised. The gun was connected to a command center in Israel via satellite, and an operative was able to control the gun and take aim at its target via a computer screen. However, when the pickup truck exploded to destroy the evidence, it didn't destroy all the components of the smart weapon. So it allowed the Iranian Revolutionary Guard to piece together what actually occurred. And there was a lot of chatter of this next story on social media last week, and that was that General Motors subsidiary GM Defense LLC said last week that it won a $36.4 million contract from the State Department to develop the next generation large support utility commercial vehicles for the department's diplomatic security service. GM Defense will create a purpose-built heavy-duty Suburban and make 10 of them over the next 2 years. GM Defense will start delivering the vehicles next spring. A production contract to build a fleet of 200 heavy-duty Suburbans per year for 9 years is expected to successfully complete the development contract in May of 2023. The value of that contract has not been released. The heavy-duty Suburban will feature a new and unique body on-frame chassis and suspension designed to specifically support increased government vehicle performance requirements with a higher payload capacity and greater ground vehicle weight than a regular Suburban. GM Defense LLC will use advanced manufacturing tools and techniques which will help to reduce overall costs and provide flexibility for future needs. The most important phrase in the news release is purpose-built. The definition of purpose-built is a vehicle designed and built for a particular use. Although not mentioned in the release, we can only assume the vehicles will be armored. If so, other than the presidential vehicles dubbed the Beast, this is the first time a United States vehicle manufacturer is building a purposed armored-built vehicle. We have experience with Mercedes and have witnessed their armored vehicle manufacturing facility and can attest to the time and money that is required to manufacture a purpose-built vehicle. But the difference is substantial longevity and maintenance being a few of the benefits. It will be interesting to see if GM will make these vehicles available to the public. All data indicates that the market for armored vehicles is increasing exponentially. If you're interested in armored vehicles, you can take a look at our Armored Vehicle podcast at securitydriver.com. Our last story for this week is driving in low light conditions. It's that time of year when security drivers are spending an increased amount of time driving in low light conditions. Nighttime visibility is critical to secure transportation when you consider that about half of traffic deaths occur either in the dark or at dawn or dusk. About half of all fatal crashes in the United States occur in the dark, and more than a quarter occur on unlit roads. Headlights have an obvious role in preventing nighttime crashes, but not all headlights perform their job equally. Differences in bulb type, headlight technology, and even something as basic as how the lights are aimed affect the amount of useful light supplied. But the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, or IIHS for short, evaluations show that the on-road illumination provided by vehicle lights varies widely. The IIHS has an in-depth evaluation procedure for testing and rating headlights. We'll have a link to the testing procedures in the show notes. The Institute released its first headlight ratings in 2016. Out of more than 80 headlight systems available of the 31 model year 2016 mid-sized cars that were evaluated, only one system received a good rating. As of March 2021, 28% of headlight systems tested on 2021 models received a good rating. Half of the systems tested were rated marginal or poor because of the inadequate visibility, excessive glare from low beams from oncoming drivers, or both. Headlight technology has been developing rapidly in recent years. We have LED and high-intensity discharge, or HID lamps now, and they've begun to replace the traditional halogen ones. Many automakers offer curve adaptive headlights, which respond to steering and swivel according to the direction of travel. Many also offer high beam assist, a feature that can increase the use of high beams by automatically switching between high beams and low beams based on the presence of other vehicles. The low beams of many headlight systems with poor ratings don't provide enough light for a driver going 55 miles an hour on a straight road to stop in time after spotting an obstacle in his or her lane. They provide even less illumination on the left side of a straight road when driving on a curve. There are federal regulations on headlights, but headlights that meet the regulations don't necessarily have similar on-road performance. Under the standard, a headlamp is placed on a test rig and light intensity is measured at different angles relative to the center of the lamp. Measurements are taken for visibility and glare, but the standard permits a large range of intensities, and the angles can be adjusted within a relatively large tolerance. In addition, once the headlights are put on a vehicle, the regulations allow a wide range of mounting heights and widths and don't say how they should be aimed. As a result, two vehicles could be equipped with the same headlights but have a large difference in the distances illuminated. As a security driver or secure transportation provider, it is your responsibility to maintain the vehicle's operational characteristics. One of the most important is headlight distance. Know how far you can see, understand the concept of time and distance, and drive within those parameters. That's all for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you're not already subscribed, be sure to subscribe to the podcast from your favorite podcast app. We particularly love Overcast, which you can subscribe to us. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, we're on Stitcher, we're on Spotify, a whole bunch of varied different places. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss a future episode. The accompanying blog post for this episode has all the links to all the topics I shared. That link is securitydriver.com/podcast, and then scroll down a little bit and click on episode 188. We welcome any comments, feedback on the podcast or topics that we discussed. And if you have a moment, we would really appreciate a review of the podcast. A review helps us make the podcast better because we're getting your feedback, and it allows us to reach more people. If you have an interest in going much deeper into these types of topics, I invite you to check out the International Security Driver Association's website and consider joining the membership to gain access to the Encyclopedia of Executive Protection and Secure Transportation, the ISDA Knowledge Center. For more information on all the member benefits, head on over to isdacenter.org.